You know, throw in a curveball, or I say something that is obviously wrong, see if you can call me out on it. All right, in the bottom right corner, spawning as the red Terran player, playing for the recently formed Shopify Rebellion with teammates Lambo, who's in the call with me, and of course Scarlet, who played yesterday as well. It's going to be ByuN. All right, Hurricane. Show us what you got today. Yesterday, I think we saw some blink openers coming in from him. He just seems like the guy. He also played a blink Colossi build actually on Oxide. Now that I'm thinking back of all of those games, I do have quite a bit of info on him. He has some odd openers that either feel a little bit outdated or a little bit ahead of their time. Sometimes it's difficult to see if they're going to be meta changing or if he's playing from a meta before. We saw ByuN actually scout the little edge there with an SCV, potentially for a cannon rush maybe? Maybe Hurricane cannon rushed him one too many times. These things, they stay in your mind forever, you know? You lose on the ladder once against some clown strategy and forever. For example, whenever I play against the Muslim, I always scout behind my natural because he beat me once on Lost and Found with a barracks hidden behind my natural. And ever since then, every single game, there's a pro going behind that natural, making sure there's no barracks. It's way more of a Terra map. This is the reason why Proxy Void Race is strong or very common is because everything else kind of sucks on this map. It's a really, really good Terran map. There's some nasty tank locations outside of the third base, like near that pillar, where you can kind of control the ramp going down to the third base. If you look at the fourth base, well, if these rocks are up, you're never going to take it. Like, it's just a super tricky map in a lot of ways. It's also extremely small. To come back to your point, I actually completely missed it, but this indeed was a 12 pylon 13 gate, and this means that the Adept is going to be about 10 seconds faster. Instead of the Cybercore finishing up at 250, at 150, or at 2 minutes, it finishes up at 150. It's still early, man, for a pro gamer. Leave me alone. Yeah. Yeah, this is something that ByuN has been doing for quite some time now. He's been playing these very offbeat marine move outs, and it will feel like it makes no sense. Like, he might just make a timing across the map with a random number of marines, and he might also not do it. It's an absolute gamble as a Protoss because you have no clue what's going to happen. In theory, this could very well be a factory as well, right? There's nothing that indicates, hey, this is a marine build. But very often ByuN has been opting to go for either these 2 or 3 Rex plays, sometimes with a very fast third command center as well. And then he just moves on the map with 16 Marines. And for most people, having like 16 naked Marines on the map without medevacs is very scary, but the control of ByuN is so good, just knowing when to move forward, when to kite backward, you know, kind of the cat and mouse between the Stalkers and the Marines very often actually ends up in favor of ByuN for whatever reason. I can't quite put my finger on why that is exactly, but his control in these situations is extremely sharp. In general, I'm not a massive fan of this style because it kind of sucks against Colossi heavy openers because you get so many Marines early on, and if there's a Colossi out, you get no real potential for damage. It kind of depends what ByuN does, honestly. I mean, if he's going to be playing defensive, he's going to have a crap ton of units, right? He's going to have +1 and stim done, and Hurricane's got to be like, what the heck is this guy on? But if ByuN decides to move out, and Hurricane sees that, he can catch him on the middle of the map. I mean, that'd be absolutely fantastic for Hurricane. I'm kind of afraid, though, that he's going to have to deal with a defensive ByuN in here, who already has +1. who's going to even be getting his +1 armor right now. Factory about to be finished. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too happy here if I'm a Hurricane fan. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, barely gets a bunker. Now, do note that this is a big Marine army, right? If there was a couple of extra Marauders in here, that would really help ByuN, because Marines are just a little bit easier to kite. They don't fight quite as well against Stalkers. So losing that bunker actually was kind of a big deal. We see the second stim already being used here by ByuN. How far are the medevacs away? Oof, they're just now about to start. This is looking kind of difficult here for ByuN. Yeah, definitely have been good trades in favor of Hurricane. Now, don't forget, whenever we see an even worker Terran against a Protoss, that tends to be good for the Terran player because the Muse, obviously. On top of that, we also see these upgrades are heavily in favor of ByuN. And he's now starting to add a lot of Marauders into the mix. He hasn't really lost any Marauders yet. It's just mainly been Marines. I think he lost a single Marauder, yeah. So it's going to be important to keep that Marauder count high, because once those Colossi start hitting the field, if you have an army consisting of 28 Marines, like, you're not going to be able to do anything, especially if there's a battery in play. Yeah, there's where Prism in the main gets kind of delays his own push for that. I don't actually mind that too much for ByuN, because that Colossi was so close to pushing. If you stim in and you kind of engage into a fight like this, it can be tricky if there's blink in play to just straight up disengage. Especially if the Colossi get 1 or 2 snipes off on the Marines. 2 tanks are being added as well, and I think we're going to be seeing that push near that pillar, so close to that ramp. It is so freaking difficult to deal with unless you have thermal lens before that push arrives. So I would love for Hurricane to just move on the map now. I wouldn't even mind if he moves with his entire army, not just with the Stalkers. He needs to delay this until thermal finishes up. Ooh. Yeah, this was a very weird. I really thought he would be able to just straight up push. Now, he does have a third base finish. These 2 drops are unspotted. There's no Stalkers in the natural either. Stalkers are actually in the front right now. And I think what's going to happen is ByuN's going to be able to do damage with this drop and then get himself in a really nice position at the third base at the same time as well. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And RoboBay also being taken out. Now, it's not the biggest of deals because 3 Colossi are already out, but ideally you do want to probably get into Disruptors at some point in your life, so that RoboBay needs to be rebuilt. Third base is done right now for ByuN, and we actually see him switch it up a little bit from what I've seen before out of him. Very often, when he felt like he had momentum, he would just continue building medevacs, go into a faster fourth base, double eBay upgrades, and then go into 8 racks. Kind of how you would play against Zerg, except no second factory. And then eventually go into Ghost once he felt like there's too many disruptors. Get this massive Marauder count initially, and you can kind of trade with with a Colossi army as long as you have decent enough upgrades, which he definitely has. Right now, though, he's opting to go for Ghost. There is an armory and there is double eBay, but because he's going Ghost and he's going double eBase, he needs to go into 6 gas, and that fort base is going to be a little bit delayed, and these extra barracks are going to be delayed, and I'm even doubting if we're really going to be seeing these extra barracks at any point in this game, because this is starting to feel kind of all-in-ish coming out of ByuN here. Continuing Viking production as well. He might just go for a big tank push and never start his 2-2 upgrades, or maybe after his push kind of fails or if it doesn't work. Seems more as a backup plan here. He always does now. Gets the prism down though with those 2 Vikings, with his Marauders and Marines as well, so that's nice. Will be a lot safer for him to move out right now that he knows that prism is gone. There's a bunch of disruptors on the map, but with tanks, sometimes you can fight those guys pretty much straight on. Oh! Yeah, the tank positions on this map are so freaking nasty. Like it feels like there's infinite positions that he can take. Now, we're saying that this is a good push coming out of ByuN, of course, but let's not forget that these zealots have been putting in real work on the other side of the map. 24 workers have gone down, sure. Hurricane is only on 2 bases, but he also still has 60 workers. He's getting a lot of disruptors, and the more disruptors you get, usually the better the TOS army gets as well. It seems to be a straight correlation there. We see a triple drop going into the main base right now. This is scary for ByuN as well. This is tricky. Yeah, it's... oh, actually, I'm not even sure if he's going to be getting the cleanup. Yeah. 2-2 finishes just as the game ends, exactly the way ByuN had it planned, with the armor first and the infantry weapon second. And yeah, nice, neat little game there coming out of ByuN, who you seem to be struggling a little bit in the early game. But it's difficult to say sometimes how much damage is enough when you're playing these big Blink Stalker early games, right? If you're not really actively killing SCVs and your third base isn't that fast, how good is that situation really that he finds himself in? I'm not entirely sure. It felt like, sure, the trades were good, but then you look at the state the moment the first push starts happening, and I don't actually mind the position that much for ByuN. Right. Yeah, and if you're a Terran player, it probably never feels that way, that it's committed. I know myself as well. You play against, it's like, oh, He kills like shoots like 1 bunker, then you scan, and he's like 6 base. Like what? I'm still on 2. But yeah, no, the Furgate is kind of dedicated, of course. And let's not forget that his initial start of the game also wasn't too hot, right? He did play the 12-13, the 12-5-13 game. So yeah, altogether, neat little game here for ByuN, who has very nice maneuvers. It feels a bit like a brick at times, you know, how he plays, you know what I mean? Where he just loads up and he goes, you know, just instinctual kind of, where he knows, okay, I feel like there's no observer here, and I'm just gonna load up these medevacs and go into the natural, and it's not something you expect if you see 3 tanks moving across the map. Like, you're not gonna expect 2 medevacs to also show up in your natural, because that push by itself is already so scary, and both of us were kind of confused, but that really did work out. And if ByuN gets into a position where he has that type of momentum, where you don't have full vision as a Protoss player, he's one of the scariest guys to play against, because he's loading up entire armies. His micro in these individual situations is so ridiculously good. Like his Marauders just seem a little bit stronger than the other guy's Marauders. So it's cool to see how he kind of uses that micro and kind of gives his own. Really, he kind of changed TVP. I think we've seen it a lot more often. These big barrack styles right now with continuous medevac production, and it's rough to play against. And it's kind of ByuN. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, he plays it safe. He actually tends to not scout a lot as well, though. Like I've watched him play entire Ollie Mollies without sending an SCV to the other side of the map. And you check his vision 6 minutes in, and he's seen like half an inch outside of his natural with like a Marine or something. And it's like, all right, if that's how you want to be doing it, that's completely fine. But we're gonna be going into game number 2 here. And in top right, spawning as the Red Terran player playing for Team Shopify's Rebellion. It's going to be ByuN. I also believe he's currently teamless. He also has the Protoss logo in the bottom. It's really cool that they have a specific thing for every single player with the logos, and it's nice little logos on the map. Let me see if I can find it. Yes, the Intel Extreme Masters logo looked absolutely beautiful. I remember the first time I saw it, I thought it was so sick. Also was a thing in Warcraft 3 with like the flags and stuff. I always thought it looked really cool. The logo of the Shopify Rebellion is really nice as well, by the way. I'm a big fan of it. I didn't watch that animation. Oh, I'll have to watch that after this. But for now, we see ByuN. Oh my god, this is going to be an eBay block, isn't it? No, it's too late for an eBay block. It's way too late. Yeah. Oh, this is actually a really fast scout. Because very often you see Terran players just kind of scout after their barracks. I think this was an 18 scout. Yeah, against the Void Ray. Against Proxy Void Ray, you don't want the CC on the low ground. So that's indeed what it's for. I'm curious to see what ByuN's going to follow up. He's actually opening a Reaper. It's rare to see him open up with a Reaper. He loves his Marine openers. Marine into Reactor is by far his most used opener in the past month and a half, I want to say, where, you know, when he came back, he kind of invented or reinvented the eBay block. So for a while, all Terrans were doing is they play gas first, then eBay block, go into a Marine, and do some random factory timing, or like a Hellion drop or whatever. And it was so insanely annoying to deal with. And after a while, Tossa started walling on the low ground so he could see the eBay, and started proxy void raying a whole bunch as well, where the eBay on the natural isn't all that bad because you have void rays in the other side, and other guy's base. But Yeah, it's interesting to see how he kind of keeps innovating, and every single time. Yeah, yeah, I saw that as well. I was like, ooh. But I got caught in the middle of my own sentence. So I'm glad you made the ooh noise, in case people didn't know it was impressive. We have a Stargate on the left side here. This is a third pylon Stargate. Oh my, what? ByuN. This is big. Oh, this is especially big because there was no Reaper wall. If there was a Reaper wall here, it wouldn't have mattered that much. This is such a great start here for Hurricane. By the way, he's gonna be getting 2 SCVs on the no. Oh, he actually misses a shot there. Yeah, not a shaded. Yeah, yeah. Of him microing. Yeah, yeah. No, but definitely, when I think about ByuN, just the innovation that he brings to the TVP matchup is really crazy, and it feels like people just kind of follow him. They haven't really been following him with this barrack style though. No one else seems to be as fond of it as ByuN is. Personally, I'm also not too fond of it at times. It feels a little bit unsafe, a little bit gambly, but I mean it's working out great for him most of the time. So who am I to complain? Now we have this Oracle coming in here. And we'll be able to take out 1 worker at least. This minus oh my god, are you... Yeah. I didn't even see that one. I was like, it's nice that he has a mine on top of the barracks. What about the mineral line? And then I guess Hurricane was thinking the same thing and lost his Oracle. They often say great minds think alike, but this was more the opposite. As we have the mines going into the medevac, I'd be surprised if he moves out with this. You know, there's a Stargate. Even though out of a proxy Stargate, it's kind of uncommon to still build Phoenixes. I love that ByuN is looking for the Stargate. This is so cool. Just in case there's going to be Phoenixes, he's like, you know what? I don't want you to keep making Phoenixes. I actually want to take this out. So not only does he get the scout on the fact that it's Phoenix, but he also will deny any further Phoenixes. And Phoenixes are such a snowbally unit where if you have 2 or 3, they're not really worth it, honestly. Like, you're going to be able to do a little bit of damage, but the more you get, really, the better they tend to snowball for you at times. And I don't think this Phoenix will die, but I am wrong. And the Phoenix falls. Good scan there coming out of ByuN as the Cyclone lock-on range is a little bit longer than I remembered. The 2 mine position as well, man. ByuN is... it feels gimmicky the way he plays, but he's actually just using every unit in the optimal way, it feels like. Like, he's taking small risks in order to get pretty big rewards. You know, these 2 mines on the left side, if they catch a Phoenix there... The last Phoenix is practically worthless. Already right now, these 2 Phoenixes are kind of worthless, right? You can't really go harass with 2 Phoenixes. Killing an SCV will take half a year. And there's a Cyclone, there's a Viking. You see ByuN moving across the map. I'd be surprised if he gets a kill here, or even if he gets anything done. There's no battery on the 3rd base, but he's opting to go to the natural, where there is a battery in range of the Nexus. Yeah, that actually is really, really big. I was not minding the position of Hurricane so much. Even though his Stargate did get killed, it felt like he was at least in a good economical spot. And very often when you have a very high eco, when you play something very tech heavy, you're delaying your infrastructure a lot. So right now what's going to happen is that he needs to start adding gateways. Even though the supply right now is like, well, this looks kind of okay for Hurricane, the next minute and a half, he needs to start adding 4 or 5 gateways in order to be able to afford the economical growth that he's going through now. Otherwise, he's just going to be floating money. So the army that he has looks pretty scary, but it's not going to grow too quickly. And ByuN is on 3 racks already. This CC actually can't go down. That's kind of important. Yeah, another thing that during that push where he did a lot of damage, he was floating 8 to 900 minerals, actually. I forgot to mention it, and that, of course, is going to delay your follow-up stim push, especially if you're playing 3 racks before CC. I think it might have been almost at... No, it's 3 racks actually was before CC, but it felt like those were a little bit delayed compared to what they're supposed to be, and we already saw quite some factory units being produced initially, so... It's a little bit painful there for ByuN. I wouldn't be too worried. We just saw the 5 extra gateways go down. There is no charge yet, and Blink is only halfway done. So drops are going to be a very, very viable option here for ByuN to play with. Thermal Lens is about to finish up, but we're not seeing a pre-split coming out of Hurricane. I think Hurricane is misreading the timing of when these medevacts can move out. Yeah, and something that it is that ByuN does here isn't even necessarily always hunting for damage. He's also always hunting for vision. So he's making sure he can't get spotted by observers. We just saw him cancel a pylon. He wants to take out that probe on the left side. We now see that scan exactly like that. And he immediately loads up, sadly still in vision, of a secondary observer that was further in the back. So the observer placement doesn't make much sense, but it also kind of makes sense because of that, because who's going to scan a second time at almost the exact same spot? We have a lot of stalkers in the main. This time Blink is done, so ByuN needs to be very, very careful. He does another scan on the far right side, doesn't see anything. But yeah, Hurricane's in a good position. Yeah, that would have been the play. If it was just the stalkers, I've had one too many times where I tried to pull a move like that and he drops and I lose all my stalkers. So I kind of, but yeah, no, I completely agree. If your Colossi is there, that is not necessary. You can try to hide it a bit. And ByuN didn't scan that time. He's been scanning a lot, but not in the base, at least not this time around. So yeah, that definitely would have been a play. We see 2-2 coming down. We see the Ghost Academy once again before the fort. So I think he actually just kind of had a change of mind on the style he was playing before, where he went into that faster fort CC, he went into those faster barracks. Now he is more keen on getting quicker Ghost out. And I don't mind that at all. I mean, his control with Ghost Marauder armies is very good. We still see that big split in the armies, and we still see very continuous medevac production here, allowing him to be on 2 sides of the map without too much risk on it. Of course, if he gets properly blinked on and there's Colossi, maybe a couple of good force field, it can be scary, but if his control is on point, if he realizes where his opponent's army is, he can be fine. This is very scary though. If he walks up that ramp, he could potentially be trapped. Yeah, he needs to pay attention there. You know what's really cool that we actually don't see a lot is that we're actually seeing some really nice adaptations coming out of Hurricane. Usually we say after 3 Colossi, you kind of want to stop them. But because ByuN is so keen on skipping Vikings and continuing medevac production, he says, you know what, I'm just going to be getting 5 Colossi, which makes it way easier for me to split my army. I mean, I'll have 3 Colossi on one side, 2 on the other, which means I'm always going to be trading at least okay against most armies. And now that he manages to get everything together, what does ByuN really have to counter this army? Yeah, definitely. We see a sensor tower in an interesting location. It's not going to work out. A part of the army of ByuN might be setting up for a flank, but in order to flank, you also need a second army. Otherwise, just an attack from the back. There's not really that much of a flank. We see Disruptor shot not hitting everything, but hitting big enough things. And I think ByuN is going to try to go for like a semi-base trade and then perhaps try to hold his natural. I mean, he knows that the recall has already been used. I think he saw that, so... Yeah. Yeah, before they join together, especially that right side army is looking very, very weak. But of course, Hurricane knows that he wants to join the mob. He's walking into an engagement that I don't think he was quite prepared for. This position is nice for ByuN. Let's see if it's going to be enough big disruptor shot hitting though. And the Colossi flank from the back might just prove to be a little bit too much. As 5 Colossi, 2 Immortals, and a bunch of Stalkers are still going ham on ByuN's army. Right now, Hurricane is doubling the supply as Shadow Strike finishes up. ByuN has to tap out. Ties up the series, does Hurricane, and we're going to be going to the rubber match. To be safe. A true caster. Showing a lot of empathy to the players, guys. But we'll have to do with the... That's all good. I'll just remove you temporarily. Right now I'm not seeing anything, but that's okay. Yeah, that last game was interesting. I feel like I really like the addition of those 2 extra Colossi. And the moment you get all those Colossi together, you said it correctly, by the way, it's the moment that you can kind of scare that army of ByuN back home and there's nothing on the map. As a toss, you finally have the right to actually attack into something, and preferably, obviously, the third. And then all of a sudden you're fighting an army that isn't all that great, right? The upgrades weren't absolutely brilliant. There was no Vikings there. Sure, there's Ghosts and Marauders, but against 5 Colossi, 2 Immortal, and even a couple of Disruptors, that's going to be a very, very tough fight. And Hurricane honestly handled that in a beautiful way. So let's see if ByuN has another ace up his sleeve, or a king for that matter, because that last game was looking very, very good for Hurricane. Even though his early game wasn't that hot, right? Lost 14 workers. Bit so-so. And at top right, spawning as the blue Protoss player, it is going to be Hurricane. But this time he's opening up with a Reaper Wall. First time he does it. Neither on Jagannata nor Submarine. Of course, on Submarine it's kind of useless. Like, not that great of a Reaper Wall. Jagannata has Oxide has a brilliant Reaper Wall. And Hurricane is showing this off perfectly immediately. So let me talk about that for a little bit. This is only possible on Oxide and Jagannata. And what you do is you can wall off this area that I'm pointing to right now. You have this Reaper ramp, and you can still hide a tech building over here. Even if the Reaper pops up here, he won't be able to see the tech building here, which makes this map very, very good for slightly cheesy or more risky strategies. We've seen things like Stargate, Phoenix save-ups, 3-gate DT is extremely popular on this map, as well as 4-gate Blink. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those 3 things. And I'm especially keen to see the Twilight Council play, because that is, I think, the most common and the most popular, especially in Korea. We see these big 4-gate Blink pushes, we see these DT drops on Oxide a lot. Now, of course, sometimes the best thing you can do on a map where people expect this type of play is to not do it at all. So there's a little bit of a mind game involved there. ByuN is, of course, aware. And ByuN is like, you know what? This map is so crap for Reapers. I'm not even going to start one. Oh! Yeah. And it's definitely not the same as that we saw in the second game either, right? With that Barracks versus Reaper Marine play. Now, the thing that happens here is that the factory is going to be faster, which means any type of drop or aggressive play that ByuN can do based on a factory is going to hit 20 seconds quicker. And because he managed to fake a Reaper, I'm going to be really, really surprised if Hurricane is just straight up letting this shade finish. I'd actually be shocked. I'm actually a little bit surprised and shocked there. Like, this is really weird because he didn't see the Marine. He saw a unit producing from the barracks. If a Reaper had popped into his main base, he actually would have been in a bit of trouble. He would have lost 2-3 workers, and that's not worth it. Yeah, that's... Yeah, probably. I mean, even now, he shouldn't be capable of getting this SCV. He should be able to get 2 hits off, then the CC will finish. He can go into the CC. The Hellion finishes up. So at this moment, if Hurricane knows his timings, which he does, he should know, hey, this was a Marine into factory, not into reactor. Because if you're playing Marine reactor factory, in that case, it's going to be a Hellion that finishes up at around 318, 319, which wouldn't be hitting this Adept then, obviously. So right now, the timings in Hurricane's head have already been changing a little bit. And he is, by the way, going for that Phoenix save up in the main base. This is something we don't really see very often in Korea. No. Needs to be a save. Yes, absolutely should be. Especially after seeing the Hellion, I would be... Because it kind of indicates that there's going to be... Usually it's going to be like a medevac drop as a follow-up. Very, very often. This definitely should have been left at home. I like that he's scouting for a proxy starport. Potentially a proxy starport. He's barely... Oh, he sees it. He sees it. He barely caught the medevac. That's a really, really big deal. If he's out of position and his medevac hits... He's going to actually be in a bad spot. But right now, I think he's going to be okay, right? He won't take any damage. He knows there's a medevac on the map. ByuN also won't be too upset. He sees, hey, he was doing a Phoenix save up, and I get to go home for free. You know, that's better than most Terrans get to do if there's a Phoenix save up. Very often, you don't get the privilege of walking home with your Marine. So the wife and the kids of these bad boys will be very happy as well. And we're going to be continuing into a 3-Rex mid game. I'm expecting the Raven to die before he moves out on the map. If I'm going to be honest with you, Raven is notoriously really bad against Phoenix. You know what's funny about the Raven? If you get it to the other side of the map and you're playing against Phoenix, it could just straight up win you the game because the Colossi are so delayed. There's going to very often be a single Colossi, and that will be all the real damage output. So if you get a interference matrix off on that Colossi, that could just be game over because there's no other real DPS in the army. You're really trusting on that one Colossi to do something. Then your Phoenixes can lift the Marauder so your Colossi stays alive. If you don't have the DPS of the Colossi, you could just die. But it's so difficult to keep the Raven alive against any number of Phoenix. There could be half a Phoenix on the map and I would already be worried about the health of this Raven. Of course, they take extra damage from these light attacks of the Phoenix. And the way that the Raven moves with the Terran army is just god-awful. So it's, yeah, if he gets it to the other side of the map, he kind of deserves the win, in my opinion. Did the Phoenixes, is Hurricane aware that there's a Raven? Because the way he's playing this with the Phoenixes makes me believe he doesn't quite know that there's a Raven. I I would be trying to snipe the Raven, like my life depends on it. Look at the army currently that Hurricane has. Hurricane is expecting a push on the third base. There's a cannon, a second battery going up. His army is looking pathetic right now. Oh. Yeah, I honestly, like, getting the Raven across is so difficult. He got a little bit lucky that Hurricane misread that situation, thought it was a standard push out, because who in the hell would build a Raven after scouting 4 Phoenixes? And apparently the answer is ByuN. He takes out 11 workers. The game isn't over yet. There's a lot of money in the bank here for Hurricane. The problem though is he doesn't have any Phoenixes. He doesn't have Blink, so how is he going to deal with drops? The Raven finally did go down, but these 2 interference matrices were so big. Another quick note here is that if he would have attacked into the third base, this would have been a very different fight. The fact that he goes in between the natural and the third allows him to do the maneuver that you described, where he kind of fakes going into the natural, and Hurricane's like, hey, wait, I need to defend that. Pops the super battery there, and then kind of needs to defend the high ground towards the third as well. It's a very awkward situation. We have a 4 mine drop going into the main base, while the main army of ByuN is going into the third, and there's absolutely nothing for Hurricane in place yet. Thermal Lance has finished, but the rest of his army is looking so weak with this.